Ever heard of a battle where a tiny, outnumbered force didn't just win, but completely changed the course of history? It's not a plot from a fantasy movie. It's the very real story of the Battle of Badr. Imagine this. It's the year 624 AD, in the barren desert of Arabia. A new faith, Islam, is just beginning, led by the Prophet Muhammad. Peace be upon him. He and his followers have been driven out of their home city of Mecca, forced to flee to Medina. They've lost their homes, their wealth, and have been separated from their families. For 2 years, they've been building a new community in Medina, but the threat from their powerful persecutors in Mecca, the Quraysh, still looms large. The Quraysh weren't just a rival tribe. They were the custodians of the Kaaba, the center of Arabian pagan worship, and Mecca was a massive hub for trade. This new monotheistic faith threatened their power, their economy, and their entire way of life. So, the tension was incredibly high. The Muslims in Medina were in a precarious position. They were refugees, trying to survive, while the Quraysh continued to send out raiding parties and threats. It was a classic David versus Goliath setup, but the stakes were unimaginably high. It wasn't just about land or wealth. It was about the very survival of a faith that would one day have billions of followers. Now, let's set the stage for the conflict itself. The flashpoint came when news reached Medina that a massive Quraysh caravan, loaded with goods, and well, some of which was actually property confiscated from the Muslims who fled. Mecca was returning from Syria. It was led by a man named Abu Sufyan, a shrewd leader of the Quraysh. The Prophet Muhammad saw an opportunity, not necessarily for a full-blown war, but to intercept this caravan and reclaim some of what was stolen from his people. It was a strategic move to weaken the Meccan economy that was funding the opposition against them. So, he gathered a small force, about 330 men. Think about that number, 330. Most of them were on foot, with only 2 horses and 70 camels among them. They weren't a professional army. They were companions, believers, driven by faith and a desire for justice. They were poorly equipped, but spiritually fortified. But Abu Sufyan was no fool. He got wind of the Muslims' plan and immediately sent a fast rider to Mecca, pleading for reinforcements. The message was dramatic. Save your caravan. Muhammad and his companions are coming for it. This sent Mecca into a frenzy. Pride, anger, and a desire to crush this new movement once and for all took over. The leaders of the Quraysh assembled a formidable army. We're joking about 1,000 men, decked out in armor, with 100 horses and hundreds of camels. They were well-fed, well-armed, and spoiling for a fight. Their goal was no longer just to protect the caravan. It was to march on Medina and obliterate the Muslims for good. Meanwhile, Abu Sufyan cleverly rerouted his caravan along a different coastal path, safely getting it out of harm's way. He then sent another message to the Meccan army, saying, "The caravan is safe. You can go back." But it was too late. The thirst for battle had taken hold. A particularly arrogant leader named Abu Jahl famously declared, "By God, we will not go back until we have been to Badr, and we will stay there for 3 days, slaughter camels, feast and drink wine, and the Arabs will hear of us and hold us in awe forever." So, the massive Quraysh army, driven by pride and arrogance, continued its march towards Badr. The Muslims, on the other hand, had a crucial decision to make. Their original mission was to intercept a caravan, not fight a full-scale army 3 times their size. The Prophet Muhammad, being a true leader, consulted his companions. He didn't just command them, he asked for their counsel. The companions from Medina, the Ansar, who had given refuge to the Muslims from Mecca, pledged their unwavering support. One of them, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, famously said, "O Messenger of God, we have believed in you and we have testified that what you have brought is the truth. So go forth where you wish. We are with you. By God, if you were to ask us to cross this sea, we would cross it with you." This display of unity and loyalty was incredible. With their spirits high, despite the terrifying odds, the small Muslim force advanced towards the wells of Badr, and this is where strategy comes into play. Upon reaching Badr, the Prophet, guided by divine inspiration and the wise counsel of his companions, made a brilliant tactical move. He took control of the water source. By positioning his men near the main well, He secured a vital resource for his own army while denying it to the approaching, and soon tuber-thirsty, Meccan forces. They spent the night before the battle in prayer. The Quran describes a sense of peace and tranquility descending upon the believers, a refreshing rain falling that solidified the ground under their feet and purified them. It was a sign of reassurance. The Prophet himself spent the entire night in intense supplication, praying to God for the victory he had promised. The morning of the 17th of Ramadan arrived. The two armies faced each other. On one side, 1,000 proud, heavily armed warriors. On the other, just over 300 believers, with simple weapons but hearts full of faith. The battle began in the traditional Arab way, with individual duels. 3 of the Quraysh's finest champions stepped forward, including the brother and uncle of a powerful leader. They challenged the Muslims to send out their best. The Prophet sent 3 of his own family members. His uncle, his cousin, Ali, ibn Abi Talib, and another cousin, Ubaidah ibn al-Harith. In a swift and stunning display of skill and courage, Hamza and Ali defeated their opponents. Ubaidah was wounded, but his opponent was also slain. This was a massive psychological blow to the Quraysh right from the start. Their champions were defeated in moments. Seeing their elite warriors fall, the Quraysh army roared and charged. The general melee began. The Muslims held their ground in a tight, disciplined formation, a tactic that was quite advanced for the time. The Prophet had instructed them not to break rank, to hold their position and use their arrows sparingly, only engaging in hand-to-hand combat when the enemy came close. It was a battle of discipline versus chaotic rage. The Quran tells us that God sent down unseen help, angels, fighting alongside the believers. Whether you see this as a literal event or a metaphor for the incredible courage and strength the Muslims displayed, the effect was undeniable. The much larger Quraysh army began to falter. Their morale, already shaken by the duels, was collapsing. The battle raged on, and key leaders of the Quraysh began to fall. The most significant of these was the arrogant Abu Jahl, the father of ignorance, who had been one of the fiercest enemies of Islam. His death symbolized the crumbling of the old pagan leadership of Mecca. One by one, the pillars of the Quraysh opposition were taken down. The tide had turned completely. The formidable Meccan army, which had marched out with so much pride and confidence, broke ranks and fled in disarray. The victory was total and decisive. By the end of the day, about 70 of the most prominent Quraysh leaders and warriors were dead, and another 70 were taken captive. In contrast, the Muslim losses were minimal, only martyrs. The aftermath of Badr was just as significant as the battle itself. The treatment of the prisoners was a landmark moment. In an age where captives were often brutalized or executed, the Prophet Muhammad instructed his followers to treat them with kindness. The Muslims, who were often poor themselves, shared their food with the prisoners, giving them bread while they themselves ate dates. For release, a ransom was set. Those who were literate could earn their freedom by teaching 10 Muslim children how to read and write. This was revolutionary. It showed that the goal wasn't just to win a war, but to build a society based on justice, compassion, and knowledge. The news of the stunning victory at Badr sent shockwaves across Arabia. A small band of exiles had defeated the most powerful tribe in the region. It was a miracle. For the Muslims, it was undeniable proof of divine support. Their faith was vindicated, and their community was no longer just a group of refugees, but a force to be reckoned with, a new state emerging in Medina. For the Quraysh, it was a humiliating and devastating blow. They had lost their best men, their prestige, and their aura of invincibility. The Battle of Badr wasn't just a military victory. It was a turning point in world history. It solidified the Muslim community, shifted the balance of power in Arabia, and paved the way for the eventual spread of Islam across the globe. It's a timeless story of faith against materialism, of humility against arrogance, and of how a small group, united by a powerful belief, can overcome impossible odds and change the world forever. It teaches us that true strength isn't found in numbers or weapons, but in conviction, unity, and trust in a higher purpose. Welcome back, everyone. Last time, we set the stage for one of the most pivotal moments in history, the Battle of Badr. A small, seemingly insignificant force of about 330 Muslims, many with little more than faith and determination, stood ready to face a formidable army of nearly 1,000 well-armed Quraysh warriors from Mecca. It wasn't just a battle for a caravan. It had become a fight for survival, a test of faith, and the very future of a new community. As the two armies drew closer to the wells of Badr, the strategic genius of the Prophet Muhammad began to shine. It wasn't just a spiritual leader. He was a brilliant commander. Upon arriving, he consulted his companions. One of them, Habab ibn al-Mundir, an expert in military tactics, posed a crucial question: O messenger of God, this place where we have camped, is it a place revealed to you by God, or is it a matter of opinion, strategy, and warfare? The Prophet replied that it was a matter of strategy. Habab then suggested a brilliant tactical move. They should advance and camp at the nearest well to the enemy, seize it, and then block up all the other wells. This would give the Muslims control over the water supply, a vital resource in the scorching desert heat. The Prophet immediately recognized the wisdom in this advice and ordered the army to move. This single decision put the powerful Quraysh at a significant disadvantage before a single sword was even drawn. It shows the incredible culture of consultation and respect for expertise that defined the early Muslim community. As night fell, a sense of calm and divine reassurance descended upon the Muslim camp. Rain began to fall, a blessing from the heavens. For the Muslims, it settled the sandy ground, making it firm and easy to walk on. For the Quraysh, positioned on different terrain, the same rain turned their ground into a muddy quagmire, hindering their movement and dampening their spirits. The Muslims rested peacefully, their hearts filled with tranquility, while the Quraysh army grew restless and anxious. On the morning of the battle, the 17th of Ramadan, the two armies stood facing each other. The contrast was stark. The Quraysh were a sea of armor, horses, and weapons, confident in their numbers and strength. The Muslims were a small band, their ranks thin, their equipment modest, but their resolve was unbreakable. The Prophet raised his hands to the sky in a long, heartfelt prayer, pleading for the divine help he had been promised. He prayed with such intensity that his cloak fell from his shoulders, and his closest companion, Abu Bakr, had to reassure him, saying, "O Prophet of God, your prayer to your Lord will be answered." The battle began in the traditional Arab manner, with a series of one-on-one duels. Three of the Quraysh's finest champions, Utbah ibn Rabia, his brother Shaba, and his son Walid ibn Utbah, stepped forward, challenging the Muslims to send out their best. Three young helpers from Medina bravely stepped up, but the Meccans arrogantly dismissed them, demanding to fight their equals, their own kinsmen from the Quraysh tribe. So, the Prophet called upon three of his own family members. His uncle, the Lion of God, Hamza ibn Abed Dalib, his cousin, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and another cousin, Ubaidah ibn al-Harith. What followed was a swift and decisive display of courage. Hamza and Ali quickly defeated their opponents. Ubaidah was wounded in his duel, but Hamza and Ali rushed to his aid, striking down his adversary. The Muslims had won the opening challenge, a huge psychological blow to the arrogant Quraysh, and a massive morale boost for the believers. Enraged by the loss of their champions, the Quraysh leaders ordered a full-scale attack. Their massive army surged forward like a tidal wave. The Muslims held their ground, maintaining a tight, disciplined, defensive formation as the Prophet had instructed. He commanded them not to attack until he gave the order, to conserve their energy and arrows, and to stand firm in their ranks. The air filled with the clash of steel, the shouts of warriors, and the cries of the fallen. It was chaos, dust, and steel. At the heart of the battle, the Prophet continued his intense prayers. He took a handful of dust and pebbles, and turning towards the Quraysh, he threw it at them, saying, "May their faces be disfigured." Accounts from the battle describe how this small act seemed to have a supernatural effect, with the dust entering the eyes, noses, and mouths of the Quraysh soldiers, causing confusion and disarray in their ranks. It was a moment where the physical and the spiritual worlds seemed to collide on the battlefield. Then, the Prophet gave the command to charge. The small Muslim force, which had been holding a defensive line, surged forward with a powerful cry of Allahu Akbar. God is the greatest. They fought with a ferocity and courage that stunned their opponents. They were no longer just 313 men. They were a force driven by unwavering faith. The Quraysh, who had expected an easy victory, began to falter. Their numerical superiority meant little against the disciplined and spiritually motivated Muslims. Key leaders of the Quraysh, the very architects of the persecution against the Muslims in Mecca, began to fail. One of the most significant was Abu Jahl, a man known as the father of ignorance for his staunch and brutal opposition to Islam. He was brought down not by a seasoned warrior, but by two young boys from Medina, who sought him out specifically to avenge his insults against the Prophet. As their leaders fell and their ranks broke, panic spread through the Quraysh army. Their confidence shattered, their lines crumbled, and they turned and fled in disarray. The mighty army of Mecca was routed. The battle was over. The victory was total, and for the Muslims, it was nothing short of a miracle. They had not only survived, they had won a decisive victory against overwhelming odds. The battlefield was littered with the fallen leaders of Quraysh, while the Muslims had suffered minimal losses. In the aftermath, the Prophet's character once again shone through. He ordered that the prisoners of war be treated with kindness and humanity, a standard of conduct unheard of in the brutal warfare of 7th century Arabia. The Muslim soldiers shared their limited food with the captives, often giving them the bread while they themselves ate dates. Some prisoners were released for a ransom. For those who were literate, but too poor to pay, the Prophet set a different kind of ransom. Each one could earn their freedom by teaching 10 Muslim children how to read and write. This decision laid the foundation for a new, educated society and showed that the goal wasn't just to win a war, but to build a civilization based on knowledge and compassion. The Battle of Badr was far more than just a military encounter. It was the moment that the Muslims transformed from a persecuted minority into a powerful force to be reckoned with. It validated their faith, proving to them and the world that their cause was just and divinely supported. The news of the stunning victory sent shockwaves across Arabia. The small community in Medina was no longer a fringe group. They were now a major political and military power in the region. The balance of power had shifted forever. Badr was the day of distinction, the day that separated truth from falsehood, faith from disbelief. It was the spark that would eventually illuminate the entire Arabian Peninsula and beyond, changing the course of human history forever. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the Battle of Badr. The dawn after Badr breaks, soft and golden, as if the earth itself is exhaling after the violence of the previous day. The Muslim army begins its journey back to Medina, but they are not the same men who marched out 3 days ago. They walk differently. They carry themselves with a quiet dignity, a weight of awe that has little to do with the prisoners they lead or the spoils they carry. Look at their faces. They are marked by dust and dried blood. Yes, but there is something else, a light, a stillness in their eyes that speaks of having stood at the threshold between this world and the next. They have seen angels. They have seen the hand of Allah reach down and alter the course of events in plain sight. How does a man return to normal life after that? The prisoners walk in chains. 70 men of Quraysh, the elite of Mecca, now humbled, their fine garments torn, their faces streaked with shame and thirst. Among them is Olabas, the uncle of the Prophet, peace be upon him. He had been forced to fight alongside the Quraysh, his heart heavy with conflict. As the column moves, the Prophet notices that Olabas is suffering. He cannot sleep, groaning in the night. The Prophet hears him, and he too is unable to rest. He instructs the guards to loosen the ropes, but it is not enough. I cannot sleep because of the groaning of Olabas. This is the mercy that defined him. His enemy, his captive, his uncle who had not yet believed, and yet his sleep is disturbed by his suffering. Only when the bonds are loosened does the Prophet find peace. But there is another captive, Suhail ibn Amr, a master of words whose speeches had often mocked the Muslims. Umar ibn al-Khattab approaches the Prophet. "O Messenger of Allah," he says, "let me pull out the front teeth of Suhail ibn Amr. Let me cut out his tongue, so that he may never again speak against you." It is a logical suggestion. Silence the enemy's most powerful weapon. But the Prophet's response cuts through the logic of war with the light of prophecy. "No, Umar," he says gently. "Do not mutilate him. If you leave him, perhaps one day he will stand in a place that pleases you." Umar accepts this, and years later, he would see Suhail ibn Ammar, now a Muslim, using that same eloquence to call his people to the truth. The tongue Umar wanted to cut became a tongue that proclaimed the oneness of God. This was the vision of the Prophet. He saw not just the enemy of today, but the potential believer of tomorrow. As the column halts for the night, a remarkable scene unfolds. The companions, the Ansar of Medina, treat their prisoners with a kindness that defies every convention of war. They have little food, but they give the prisoners the best of what they have, the soft bread, leaving the dry crusts for themselves. One prisoner, Abu Aziz ibn Amir, later said, "Whenever they ate, they would give me the bread and eat the dates themselves, because the Prophet had instructed them to treat us well. I was so ashamed." Imagine that. A prisoner of war, fed by his captors, treated with more dignity than he would have shown them. This was the victory of the heart. But among the prisoners, there is also a lesson in justice. Two men, Anador ibn al-Harith and Ushiba ibn another, mocked the Quran itself. Ushba had physically assaulted the Prophet as he prayed. Their crimes were not just against men, but against the truth itself. They are executed. The message is clear. There is mercy for those who fought, but for those who waged war on the very message of Allah, there is justice. For the 70 others, the door of mercy is open. The Prophet announces that any prisoner who can teach 10 Muslim children to read and write will be freed. In an age of ransom or enslavement, he chooses education as a currency. He transforms captivity into an opportunity for intellectual liberation. The hills of Medina appear on the horizon. The news of Badr has raced ahead on the wind. For days, the people had waited in agonizing suspense. Then, a rider appears, shouting, "O people of Medina, rejoice! Allah has granted victory to his messenger. The Quraysh are defeated. Abu Jahl is slain." The city erupts in pure, unbridled emotion. Women rush from their homes, men embrace in the streets. Children run and shout the names of the fallen tyrants. "The name Abu Jahl is dead," echoes from house to house. The Prophet enters Medina not as a conqueror, but as a grateful servant. He goes first to the mosque and prays to units of gratitude, his forehead touching the ground, his face wet with tears of overwhelming awe. The city prepares a celebration, but it is mixed with grief. 14 Muslims gave their lives at Badr. Their families mourn, but their mourning is mixed with a fierce pride. A mother of one of the martyrs asks the Prophet, "O Messenger of Allah, tell me, if I remain patient, will my son be in paradise?" The Prophet looks at her with tenderness. "Yes," he says, "he is in the highest paradise." She replies, "Then I have nothing to complain about." This is the spirit of Badr. It is not a spirit of worldly victory. It is a spirit of eternal certainty. But in Mecca, there is no celebration. There is only grief. Black clothes hang from every window. The wailing of women fills the valleys. The proud city of Mecca is in mourning. Their leaders are gone. Their prestige has been shattered. The name of Muhammad is no longer a joke. It is a name spoken with fear, with hatred, and with a burning desire for revenge. In the house of Abu Jahl, his son, Ikrimah, vows revenge. The new leader of Quraysh, Abu Sufyan, must restore the honor of his tribe. They will try again, but that is another story. For now, Mecca weeps. In the quiet moments after the battle, revelation descends. The Quran begins to speak of Badr. An entire chapter, Surah Al-Anfal, is revealed. It addresses the questions that arose, and in it, Allah reminds the believers that it was not their strength that won the battle. It was Him. He says, "And you did not kill them. But it was Allah who killed them, and you threw not, when you threw, but it was Allah who threw." This is the central lesson of Badr. The believers won because Allah willed it, and He willed it because they stood for Him when no one else would. They put their trust in him alone. The prophet gathers his companions and tells them something that will define their understanding of this battle forever. He says, "Perhaps Allah looked upon the people of Badr and said, 'Do as you wish, for I have forgiven you.'" This is a promise of paradise for everyone who stood on that field, not because they were perfect, but because on that day they gave everything. So why does Badr matter today? Because Badr is the moment when the impossible became possible. It is the proof that numbers do not determine victory. It is the evidence that when you stand for Allah, Allah stands with you. In every generation, we face our own battles, not with swords, but with doubt, despair, and moral decay. And in those battles, we look back at Badr. We remember the 313. We remember the prayer in the night. We remember the dust that became an army. We remember the angels. Badr is not just history. It is a template. It is a living reminder that the help of Allah is near, and that the forces of falsehood, no matter how mighty they appear, are ultimately fragile. The truth has come, and the promise continues, for those who believe, for those who strive, for those who stand in the darkness and call upon the light. The promise of Badr is their promise. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that inspire. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the Battle of Badr. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. We'll be exploring more incredible moments from history. See you next time.